Should I stop here? Should I stop here? Oh, I guess I cannot stop. Then you do the recursion. Okay, if you do the recursion first, then it becomes endless. There's no way to stop it. Okay. So let's go back to the syllabus. I just want to remind people, when and where we are going to take the final exam. So in this case, the final exam is on the 10th of December. The time is 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Okay, so that's what, about 3 weeks ago, or 3 weeks later? And we are going to miss next Friday, so effectively we have only 1 week before the final exam.
Right.
Yep.
Are we going to have any more homework, do you think? Are we going to have any more assignments?
I'll give you another homework assignment for sure. Whether we have 1 more or 2 more is up to, it depends on how much time we have. The more homework assignment, the better, because that way you guys can practice it a little more. So I will give you 1 assignment, for on the topic of returning values. It's obviously not going to be Fibonacci because we have done it already in the class. So I'll give you guys something else, on returning values. Okay. Are there any questions about the date and the time of the final exam?
Did you change your office hours?
Yeah, I kind of changed my office hours during the week, but I haven't really changed it much. In other words, it is listed here on my office hour. It is listed here Monday to Thursday, noon to 1 o'clock. I will still be in my office during that time. It's just that I will also be there a little bit earlier too. So for the most part, you can just use this as my office hour. I will still be there.
Are we doing it in the lab, the final in the lab?
Do you guys want to do it in the lab or do you want to do it on paper? Lab. Okay, this is the funny thing. I think people are just, they just don't want to change things if it's not broken. When I asked my other classes, my Tuesday, Thursday class, and my Monday, Wednesday class, and asked them, do you guys want to do it on paper? And they all say, yes, we want to do it on paper, because that's what they have been doing, and they feel comfortable doing it on paper. And in this class, because we have been doing it, using Moodle, doing the online test, and you guys just feel more comfortable doing it online. So I guess, it's just illustrates, how people are resistant to changes. And then the other part is here. I just want to kind of reiterate, to basically just talk about this again. The final exam is 40% of the final grade. On the other hand, to get a C, someone just needs to have at least 37.5% of all the points. And this is something that I have talked about, on day 1 when we talked about the syllabus, is someone can flunk, exam 1, exam 2, not turn in any homework assignments at all, ace the final exam, and walk out with a C from this class. The likelihood of that happening is a little bit slim, on the slim side, because, someone who flunks out the first and the second test, may have problems with just loops and conditional statements, let alone the new concepts like, subroutines and, passing by value, passing by reference, and so on. So the best way to prepare is really just to go through the sample programs that we have talked about in the class. Don't look at the trace. Look at the sample, look at the code part itself, do the trace as an exercise, and then compare your trace with my trace and see whether they match up exactly. Okay? If they don't match up exactly, you want to see why they're not matching up exactly and find out where they start to divert, where they start to become different. Because that usually reflects a certain misunderstanding of a concept, and you want to spot that as early as possible before we get to the final. Okay. The week before the final exam, let me pop out the calendar. Let me see. Does this tool have a calendar? No. Okay, this tool doesn't have a calendar. But the Friday before the final exam, I will give you guys a practice exam, just like I give you practice exams for exam 1 and exam 2. So we'll spend maybe an hour or maybe an hour and a half of the class to talk about the practice exam, which will talk about question types that will be similar to the type of questions in the final exam. The Friday before So basically that will be December 3rd. Okay, so on December 3rd, we'll have a practice test. On December 10th, we have the actual test. So that's why this class is, I can't cover all the material that I want to cover in this class because we have basically lost 3 weeks of time. Okay? Most other classes, full semester classes, will have a final on the final week, which means the last week we will still have instruction. But for this class being a Friday only class, we use the last class meeting as our final exam. So we lose one class because of that. And then we lose one Friday because of Thanksgiving. We lose another one last week for Veterans Day. So we basically lose 3 class meetings. But the worst part is every class meeting is worth 1 week's worth of lectures. So that's why we basically lost 3 weeks in this class. Whereas, with a Monday, Wednesday class, Tuesday, Thursday classes will only miss like 1 day of the entire semester because we only have 1 holiday on a Thursday.
2.
2? No, just 1. With Veterans Day, ARC moved it to Friday. Yep. That's why it's brutal to this class and not on the Tuesday, Thursday class.
How many questions is going to be in the final?
There will be enough questions. I cannot give you the number because I have no idea. Oh, well, since we have just a little bit of time, I just want to show you something that is a little bit disturbing. It's not a disturbing kind of image. It's just disturbing in terms of, I'll show you. You guys will see what I mean by that. Nothing that is inappropriate for a class.
Is that the cheating thing?
Yeah, it's the cheating thing. I think some of you have seen it already. Yes? No? Kind of? Okay, I'll just kind of read it. You can go to /dot and actually play the video yourselves if you want to. So basically this happened in the University of Central Florida. It's a class of about 600 students. 200 admitted to cheating on a midterm exam after their professor figured out at least 1/3 of the class had cheated. And if you watch the video, it's kind of interesting of how he found out that there's something abnormal about this particular class. And he told the students that he had done a statistical analysis of the grades and was using other methods to identify the cheats. But instead of turning the list over to authorities, he offered the following deal. Quotes, "I don't want to have to explain to your parents why you didn't graduate. This is a capstone class, which means it's one of the last classes that people have to take to graduate. That's why, and therefore the statement, I don't want to have to explain to your parents why you're not graduating. So I went to the dean and made a deal. The deal is you can either wait it out and hope that we don't identify you, or you can identify yourself to the lab instructor and you can complete the rest of the course and get the grade that you get in the end." So he's basically just dropping the grade of this midterm. If people just admit, that I cheated, he would just drop the grade of this particular midterm, have people to take an alternative midterm, and keep their score in the alternative midterm, which I think is very, very lenient.
That's fair.
I think that's very lenient. The problem, with this particular case has to do with the students, in terms of cheating, they were not cheating during the exam. They were not exchanging answers and whatnot during the exam. What they did was someone found the test bank questions. Okay, they found, the list of questions where all the questions will come from. And as a result, 200 of these students somehow got a list of of the test bank, and they studied based on the test bank, and therefore they kind of aced out the exam because they knew exactly what potentially can be in the exam. Okay, and as a result, the professor found this out not by looking at individual tests. He found it out by looking at the score of the class. So let's say this is 100% and that's 0%, okay? And he was basically using all prior years as a baseline. So most of the time, the curve is a normal curve. It kind of looks like this, with the peak at somewhere between a B and a C, at least in his class. But this year, the curve looks more like this. It's a bimodal curve. Okay. Now, with a class like this, if I see something like this, I would not be too surprised. Okay, because the sample size is too small. With 30-something students, it's not really enough to really look at the shape and say, oh, something is not right here. But his class has 600 students. Okay, with a sample size of 600, the curve should really look like a normal curve. There's no reason that it should be bimodal. Okay, and he also has prior years of the same class, as a baseline, and he has never seen a bimodal curve. So he looked at the actual grades, the actual answers of students, and somehow he was able to find out what people have done, and identify those people. Some people, if you read the comments from Slashdot, they basically call him just bluffing, because he may not actually have a way to identify individual students and say that you must have cheated. Okay.
Right.
But he was saying that he could, okay, because the students, don't know any better, okay, because if you compare the risk and the benefits, okay, you risk, basically flunking out of a class, being accused of cheating on one hand, and on the other hand, you just have to take the test again.
Does it say how many people? Does it say?
Yeah.
He says 200 plus,
Admitted.
out of 600. Yeah.
Well, they actually admitted it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh.
200 admitted.
Over 200.
I thought 200 people cheated.
Right. Okay.
Now, there are also other things you can find online. I think the local TV station actually went to interview some of the students, possibly in the class and possibly not in the same class. Some students were really upset. They did not know that cheating was so rampant, on that campus. Some other students gave the reporters an exactly opposite response. It's like, I don't see anything wrong. If I can find a way to improve my score, that's perfectly fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. So it's just kind of interesting, like that. And but to bring everything back to this class, I have no idea what questions I'll be asking. There's no such thing as a test bank in this class.
Will be on the Bible.
How many?
Yeah.
I don't even have an idea of how many, because it depends on how difficult each question is. Then I'll kind of gauge and say, oh, I think this question people will take about this much time to finish it, and this question people will need this much time to finish it. So I have no idea of how many questions or even the type of the questions. Because in the previous 2 exams, I have to spend, in each class, I have to spend more than 4 hours to grade a single exam of the entire class. And that's a little bit too much time, and I also think that sometimes it's not easy for me to give partial credit in those cases. So I'm thinking in the final exam, I might want to change the type of questions so that it is much more black and white, like, this is right, this is wrong, and that's why, it is worth this many points. So I'm hoping to try to achieve that in the final exam, which may be good and may be bad. It depends on how you look at it. Partial credit is usually good, but to assign partial credit is difficult because now I have to say, okay, if people miss this thing, I will take this many points off. But why is this taking more points off than that thing? So I haven't decided yet. Yep.
Did you post the answers for our last exam?
Yeah.
I thought I did.
I didn't see them. Did you see them?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I did not?
I did. Well, I don't recall seeing them.
Okay, I
I
might
saw
not.
the grade. I didn't see the answers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the new data material.
This
Hmm?
last exam grades.
Oh, you want to look at the statistics?